Sure. Yeah. Hi, my name is Dr. Kavita Pandey, and I'm currently working as a scientist at Center for Nano and Soft Matter Sciences, where I have a group of 8 people with 5 PhD students and 2 GRFs working with me and 1 postdoctoral fellow. Telling you about myself, it's like I spent my childhood and like growing years in the vibrant city of Ahmedabad, which is a town in a culturally rich state of Gujarat, India. My early influencers during my growing years were definitely my parents, who instilled in me a deep sense of curiosity and a relentless pursuit of knowledge. Their unwavering support and encouragement fostered a love for learning and exploration from an early age. I was also joined by my brother. I have one sibling, Mithil, and he also joined me in this learning and exploration from an early age, and that's how we actually started doing like science from very early on in our, I mean, in our age. While pursuing my bachelor's and master's degree in physics, I developed a strong foundation in the fundamental principles of science. So I know I'm awarded with in chemistry, but actually my bachelor's and master's is in physics. However, my unexpected foray into the world of chemistry happened during my doctoral research. It was only my supervisor who assigned me to address a very challenging problem, and I dwelled into the intricacies of fabricating diverse morphology of a specific material utilizing the principles of electrochemistry for energy storage applications. So, this was a challenge given to me by my doctoral supervisor, and despite having no prior formal training in chemistry, my fascination with the intricacies and potential of chemical processes was ignited. The thrill of conducting experiments and uncovering the underlying mechanisms sparked an unquenchable thirst for understanding the nuances of chemical reactions and material science. Throughout this journey, actually, I've come here to appreciate the interdisciplinary nature of scientific exploration, where the boundaries between various disciplines blur. It doesn't matter where you come from. You can be coming from physics and biology and start exploring a different arena altogether. This is where the innovative discoveries often stem from the fusion of diverse fields. My experiences have underscored the profound impact of interdisciplinary science, inspiring me to continuously push the boundaries of my knowledge and delve deeper into the world of chemistry. And that's how I became a chemist, and I'm doing research in chemistry now. uh, not so From an early age, my father used to take me and my brother along with him to the field, and used to explain us how what are the chemical reactions that are happening, what are how the petrol is being produced, and also and so many things, including his colleagues were also there, who used to help us and make in understanding the process. So there were many instances where we did many projects together, like in our summer time, me and my brother was sent to at home we used to make like various projects we used to do out of fun. So we made one time, it was a FM radio which we made it by ourselves at home, and that was like we were excited, and we used to love each other's company for doing that as well. Then the major project was done, where we actually did a project and there is a publication out of it for me and my brother together. That is when he was doing his masters, and we did like this low concentrated photovoltaic system is what we developed. So he's a mechanical engineer by training, and he used his knowledge from mechanical engineering field, and I used my knowledge of physics which I had during my bachelor's and masters to develop this LCPV system, low concentrated photovoltaic system, and it is all actually displayed in Pandit Deen Dayal Petroleum University. So that is like a working model that we developed together, and we actually that's how we were trained into the field of science and engineering. Uh, Right. So there are many such things where we have been doing as a family, like cooking is one such example. All four of us, we will be in kitchen, we'll be cooking with each other, and all these things do happen. But the one thing which was imbibed in me from a very early age, like my mother did this, and I'm really thankful to her. It's the honesty is the best policy. That's what she has taught me, and I have been very honest until now. It's like I have from in every perspective, be it personal or professional, and that that has helped me a lot to reach where I am today. uh, so also like being honest, I'll give you one example where I actually, it was like during my 11th standard, I was facing a lot of trouble in understanding the laws of physics and the fundamentals out of it. I really scored really low. I mean, I scored really low in this that subject. It was just like a passing marks. So my friend suggested me that you can trick your parents. I was very scared because throughout my career until that time, it was like I was the first ranker, and it was the only first time that I was seeing my result sheet with such a low grade. So I was very scared, like what my parents would think. It's completely different. They were not expecting it. So then my friends were telling me, like, you can just tweak it a bit, and it will look like 3 will look like 8. So you will see, it is 86 instead of 36. So I was like, I could have easily done that at that point of time. And actually, truly speaking, I actually, in my result card, I did that. It was 86. But then when I went to my parents and showed them the scorecard, it was like, something is wrong. I can't be doing this. So I actually, then and there itself, I told them, no, it's not 86. I have done that by myself. It's 36. So uh, it was like, but my parents were very supportive. Like, I was scared from them, but it was like, what happened? It's okay. Sometimes it's okay to score low. There is it's not going to change anything. It just shows that you have to deal with it, and you have to work harder in that subject, and that's it. They were fine with it, but it was just me being scared. But yes, as I said, it's the best thing to stay is honesty will always help you. So basically, it was not a big discussion at home. So it was, the choice was given to me completely, to me, on what area I want to choose. It could be arts as well. So my parents were quite okay with that. Like, if you want to study economics or anything else other than science, they are completely fine with it. So it was just me, like, who wanted to study science. Initially I was like, I would do MBBS. That's how I chose this PCBM subject, like where I have studied physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics. But then I realized during my that 11th and 12th, I used to like I my mindset was more of research oriented. I didn't used to enjoy biology much, and that's how I started thinking, like, I need to rethink. Really need to rethink whether I can go into this, like, I'm doing MBBS or not. Because at that time it was like all the students who were doing like first rankers, they used to go to MBBS. That is the usual trend in our school, or whoever you see in your surrounding. So, but then I realized that maybe MBBS is not my cup of tea. I won't be able to do that. And but as I said, I really scored less in 11th grade for in my physics subject. And then I started like, I need to work hard, and while doing that, I developed a strong understanding of the subject, and I really liked it. I used to enjoy my studies in physics. It was not a burden at all, so I used to enjoy my exams, all these things. And that's how I went into this subject during my bachelor's and master's. But then when I started my doctorate degree, my supervisor was from chemistry background. The reason I chose him was because I really liked the work that he was doing at that time. So I chose, I went to him before actually applying for the doctorate degree. I went to him and I asked him like if there is a vacancy, if I can work in that area. So he already told me the challenges, because I'm coming from physics background. It requires lot of chemistry knowledge, and I was like, I can take this as a challenge, and I want to explore. I want to explore more about the how these devices work, because as I said, I've been working on making these devices by myself, like FM radio. There were many such small projects which we did together, and there were these capacitors being used, batteries being used in everywhere. But we don't know like how is it working, what are the working principle. So I thought I can take a chance, and if the supervisor is really supportive, then I can actually work on these complex subjects, even if I have not been trained in that initially. But until 12th standard, anyways, I have studied chemistry. That's a different thing. But bachelor's and master's is not in chemistry. Then he gave me a problem. He just gave me one. So he gave me a year to work on that problem, because he didn't want it to waste my time. That's how we agreed that okay, he will guide me, and then I'll be working with him for my PhD. So my idea was like I want to finish my PhD on time. The first thing that was there in my mind is on time. Time is not like I don't want to take 5 7 years and finish my research, because I really want to then establish myself. All these things were there in my mind. So he gave me 1 year, and he gave me a problem. He wanted me to use a electrochemical technique, and then he wanted to use a polymer. He gave me just a broad overview. You have this polymer, you have this electrochemical technique. Now you have to uh, actually grow different morphologies of this polymer using the same technique. So that's what he challenged me with. Now I didn't had any prior knowledge of this electrochemistry at all. I have never seen that instrument, and this was my first year of my PhD. Until then, you are always under the guidance of someone, like your teachers are there who will help you for the project. Anywhere you are stuck, you can go there. Even with this like PhD supervisor, you can go to them, but they won't give you the direct answers. They'll always be like, you have to find out, you have to find out. That's when I started my knowledge of physics. And I thought there must be something, so I started reading more and more about electrochemistry. And then I came across this, the change in direction of the electric field can actually change many things. That's where I did some modeling, mathematical modeling by myself, and thought that this should work. This should work to get me two different morphologies of of a polymer using the same technique, because I'm changing the electric field directions. And then I did experiments, many experiments. It was not like one experiment you get the success. So I designed, again with the help of my brother, I designed a electrochemical cell for my experiments, so that I can actually control many parameters by myself. So then we designed it, and actually it worked. The experiments worked. Before the end of actually 1 year, I showed my supervisor that there are two different morphologies of this polymer, and I've used the same technique. And then we wrote a publication out of it, and he was really happy. And after that, the rest is history. I mean, I was unstoppable in that field. So. Yeah. From my PhD, during my PhD itself, I had a chance to visit Nagoya Institute of Technology in Japan. That was a collaborative project between my supervisors, and as he actually already knew that I have been doing promising science, so he sent me there for a month actually to learn more about these techniques and how the international community works in this kind of research. And I was like very fascinated, and uh, it was really a very good experience to me, where I could actually, there was, it's like completely different language. The cultures are different. First of all, it was I was culturally shocked. And then there was no, I mean, they were not speaking English. So there was the food, because me being vegetarian, it was kind of a struggle. Initially I thought that this might not work, but then when I started doing the lab work, I enjoyed like anything. That the way they work is completely different. I mean, the safety standards are completely different. We They take care of the minute things in the experiments, and there are many facilities available to them. So I was like, if I get to get all these facilities, how can I would be in a completely different uh, path altogether. From there I started applying for these international fellowships, and then I was very fortunate enough to get Newton Bhabha fellowship, which allowed me to go to University of Oxford for 6 months. Now I was doing my PhD on energy storage devices, and I really liked the topic. But then I thought, well, because this was still during my doctoral program, I thought that why should I bound myself to energy storage devices? Because I have already developed a technique, why not to use it to some other systems? With this I wrote to Professor Fraser Armstrong at again at Department of Chemistry in University of Oxford, with a specific project in mind, where I wanted to use this technique, electrochemical impedance spectroscopy, to study the enzymes that they develop in their lab. So they were developing these enzymes in their lab for hydrogen production, but they were struggling. So in all the papers that I read, I went through the papers that they were publishing, and the one thing that was missing in their papers was how fast is this enzyme is actually producing hydrogen. That is a missing part. So I wrote to him asking, like, if you will support me, I am coming with a fellowship, and if you can support me, giving me the lab space, I want to answer this question. There is a missing question in his research, like how fast these enzyme are catalyzing the reaction. And I can use electrochemical impedance spectroscopy to answer this question. He actually we met online, and then he was very keen. If He was very keen in supporting me, and then he thought that it would be really nice if I can use this technique and answer this question, because that would be a break. I mean, that would be a breakthrough in that field, protein electrochemistry. So then I he supported me. I was very lucky to get that fellowship. I went to University of Oxford, worked there for 6 months. Within that 6 months, actually, by using this technique, we did got the values, and we did and solve this mystery, and how fast these enzymes are catalyzing this reaction. And we published a paper together in PNS, which is a very reputed journal once again. And then I came back to here at PDPU to finish my PhD. After that, I went to Ecole Polytechnique Federal de Lausanne, where again I took up this energy store. After that, I was working with BMW there to solve a very specific challenge that they were facing. That battery material which they were using were degrading very fast. So they wanted to know what at what point, I mean, at what cycle. I mean, if you see about battery, you charge discharge, that's how it works. So at what cycle it just goes bad. They wanted to know this very specific problem. So at Ecole Polytechnique Federal de Lausanne in Switzerland, I work with Professor Vasuliki Tileli. She was a very young faculty who joined at the same time as me. So I joined her, and then we actually solved this mystery by making an in situ transmission electrochemical microscopy as a tool. So that tool really helped us in actually showing the the how the battery materials, and at what stage how it becomes resistive, and at what stage it starts deteriorating. uh, uh, and then again I moved to University of Oxford to work with Professor Fraser Armstrong, because there were still more some challenges. There were new enzymes that they developed, and we wanted to study those enzymes too. During that time I met my husband again at University of Oxford. He was in physics. So then we decided that we'll move to India back. He got a position in Indian Institute of Science, and that's when I started applying to places in Bangalore, and I got this opportunity to join as a scientist at Center for Nano and Soft Matter Sciences, and to start my own group, and that's how I ended up here. Mhm. Yes. Hmm. So other than my parents and my supervisors, actually, I have been very lucky in that sense that I have been working with. There are many collaborators like Dr. Claire Margheriti. I met her in her at University of Oxford. She was a postdoc there. I really used to like the way she used to approach to any problem, and that I always keep learning from people, no matter what, who they are. I try to learn from people. So she has also helped me a lot and guided me during my because I mean when I reached Oxford, it was again a different culture, different people, and then there are many things. You have a homesick. I was also homesick. I And then this was another field. It's a writing a project is a completely different thing, but then when you actually go into the lab, it's a completely different area altogether. So where you have very various kind of challenges. So in my initial days, well, like lot of struggles were there. So I was there only for 6 months. So that mind was always fixated. Like I have a timeline to, and I need to prove myself within this timeline, because if I can't prove myself, then Fraser might not give me another chance. So I always have that feeling like, you need to prove, you need to prove. And then 3 4 months, initial 3 4 months, that system is completely new. That's a biological system. I don't know anything about enzymes, proteins, DNA, how they are made. And then I have to learn from the scratch, where I have to make my own enzymes, I have to make my own proteins. Oh, it's completely a different kind of training is required. And then in the UK, when I went there, so in let's say in India, when I was in PDPU, so if I have to change this gas cylinder, I used to call some housekeeping staff, and he will just do it for me. Whereas when I went to the UK, it was all done by me. So it was like, oh my god, I have to do that as well. So it's a completely different. I was not trained for that, and it's another kind of challenge then. So there were many lows that I faced during that during those months, and during that part of my career. But then she was the one who was like always she, and then there was one more postdoc, Rhiannon Evans. So were the ones who were like, don't worry, we'll help you, don't worry, the enzyme part we can take care of, you just worry about your part, like you just focus on that part. But it's like, you are there to learn, you want to learn, and then but they used to motivate you, keep motivating, like even when you are like failing. So they were the ones. So I said, I'm really thankful to the environment that have been given, provided to me as well, all the people. Again, the next time when I went to Oxford, it was my husband again. He was like pushing me, that I was always thinking that I can't get a permanent job in India. I'm still like, I don't have enough publications, I don't have enough patents. But he was like, no, no, you have to do this. So he is like very motivating even now, for that matter. So I'm having 3 kids now, and all of them are below 3. So you can imagine so it's like managing them along with side where professional journey, it's a completely different story. But he is like pushing me that you need to stay calm, do it, you can do it. So I have been fortunate in that sense. So, about regarding the challenges that I faced, so see, professionally, you face many challenges as such. Like being a woman is not easy, especially in science. It's like people do think that you won't be able to do some few things, but Luckily I have surpassed all those comments. There were many comments which were made in the office, in the I mean everywhere, that you are on maternity leave. You just I mean just when I joined the institute here, it was a peak COVID, and then I was diagnosed with high risk pregnancy. I was carrying the twin daughters. So it was like just because I joined the institute, and then big COVID happened, and then this happened. It was like series of events taking place, and then in the office, everywhere you see these comments that she's always on maternity leave, she's always on this leave, that leave. But that didn't stop me as such, because uh, doesn't matter we are on maternity leave or not, you are always on work. So as a mother and as a scientist, you don't have to get any enjoy any such leaves, because you have your students working. They are always approaching you for the problems they are facing. They have their timelines. You need to finish that work. You have to write your project proposals, grant proposals, which comes with deadlines. It doesn't match with your maternity leave. But as such, you do encounter such comments, which actually demotivates you at that point, because you are already struggling at home, at and then you are struggling at work as well. So you do face this kind of dual challenges. Like, you have a demanding research career, and at the same time you have a responsibility of motherhood. And then this is like you have to make a fine balance between both of them. So, and continuous juggling that goes through the personal and professional challenge is quite demanding. And the support that you need is somewhat missing in the society as such. So there are people who would suggest you that, oh, you should be leaving your job. Why are you in job? You should be just focusing on your children right now. But it's not that easy, right? Leaving science and then coming back in science, especially in this country, it's a very difficult task, and I don't want to do that. But that does. And then at the office, you have like, you are always take your child is, so your child is because they were twins, were born premature, then they needed extra care. There were many things. They are still not very healthy babies. Like, even now when they are turning 3 this month, they are still not very healthy. Like, you need doctor visits, all these things comes up. And then once I was settled here, after coming back from maternity leave, once they were slightly more healthier than before, I was pregnant with my third kid. And then again, this my everyone started talking around. And this is like this is a challenging period. I mean, people don't really appreciate that how hard you would be working. Like, yeah, once you are a mother, it's like you are 24 by 7 on work. At night time, you don't really get enough sleep, all these things. And then you have the science job, which even if you are on leave, or doesn't matter, leave doesn't count for us. So, but yeah, I have gone through it now, and I'm much more at peace. I'm like, I now it's not a new thing for me. So it's like, if anybody comments such things, uh, I'm like, I can ignore and just keep working. The only time where I have faced lows is during. So personally, I have been really very fortunate in that sense. Like, my husband and my parents, my brother, everyone have been really very supporting in nature. So no matter where I went, whenever I was stuck, there was a personal support. So I was there was someone at home to support me. That way I'm very fortunate. But the lows that I would say is, it's only during the work that I have felt. So otherwise, in my research career, wherever I have been to, like, let's say in Switzerland, it was a very difficult time for me, because I didn't had I that lab, as I said, the professor Professor Vasiliki Tileli, she herself joined at that the institute quite new. She was a new professor there, so she didn't had any group members. And then for me, it's like always like I like to speak with people. I like to, like, discuss. about science or other things as well in general with other people. But that part was missing there because there was no one in the group until that point. So then I was like, I was really alone, doing everything by myself. And that's when I felt like I should leave. Should leave because there were many challenges even at work. Like once you start doing your lab work, there are many challenges. There are failed experiments most of the time, but there is no one to speak to. You can't speak to, and then even like to your family, you can't speak to everyday challenges. Otherwise, they would be thinking that you every day it's a challenging problem, and then so it's it that point faced really. I mean, I was really low at that point. I was actually because there were not many people to talk to. There was actually no one to talk to in Switzerland, and then you are just buried in your own research, just research, and then there are failures, and there is no one to support you. Uh, the culture is completely different, the language is different. Although they speak English, but still they prefer French. When I was, so at Lausanne they do this French, that they have French as a language. So in the shopping, wherever you go, it's just French, and then you don't know how to speak, communicate with people. So at that time I was facing a lot of troubles in that sense. Like it was a bit of a work to get adjusted there. And that's the reason actually I moved out quickly from there to again back to Oxford, because then I was like, my project won't be successful if I don't enjoy my stay there. So yeah, but other than that, uh, I fortunately, until and unless I came back to India as an independent researcher, I was never I've never gone through this gender specific comments until now. But yes, when I came here, I started my own career. At the same time, family grows. So at that point, yes, definitely I had a pay cut. So even though there was a disclosure from government of India, like for high risk pregnancies we can work from home, I opted for that. And then there was a pay cut. Suddenly it was told to me after 3 4 months that we will cut your salary from the beginning because you were working from home. Although it was like it was told by the government of India, and my institute is comes under that, but still they cut my salary. It was half of the salary that was given to me. And then there were many struggles after I started my own family and my own independent career. Before that, even to my students, they have also faced this kind of comments from the office staff, who actually, like, let's say when I make a purchase for the chemicals or the equipment. So I'm working at that time, I'm on maternity leave, but still I'm doing my job of putting this up, what should I say, indent purchase order, releasing this purchase order. But my students, when they go there and check, because they are not actually uh, taking it forward, I will tell my students to go and check. So they will just see, tell them that your ma'am is not coming here physically, then why should we process the bills? And I was like, oh my god, what is this? I can't be coming on, I'm on maternity leave. But there were these kind of instances, like even my students have struggled for that matter, that from the office staff. Right. So for me, to me, the success doesn't necessarily means like you get what you want. Doesn't mean the success means like how well can you learn from any failures is what, to me, success looks like. So if let's say I will give you a very small example. If I'm having a failed experiment, I'm whatever I have a goal with, I do experiments with a goal in mind. If it doesn't work, it's not still not a failure. It's a failure if you don't learn from where, what was the mistake behind it. If you don't try to diagnose the problem, it's definitely a failure. But if you diagnose the problem, if you're trying to diagnose, and then eventually it doesn't work, it's fine, it's still a success, because these are the stepping stones, you learn from your own mistakes. So if unless and until you are learning from your mistakes, it's still a success. Right. So the kind of social impact that we are going making is, so basically my contributions have centered on pushing the boundaries of electrochemistry and energy storage devices, where we emphasize on nanomaterials and their multifaceted application. So this by exploring the synthesis and characterization of hybrid nanostructures that we make in our lab, we actually uncovered the diverse functionalities. So this multi-dimensional approach has facilitated the development of novel energy storage devices that has helped in the enhancements of device physics, electrochemical diagnostics, and in situ electrochemical characterization tools. So, we, as we have grown as a group, we have gone into the realm of electrochemical sensors and electrocatalysis, which focus on bridging the gap between laboratory discoveries and technological innovations. So, by elucidating the underlying mechanisms that are governing the charge transfer processes in all these devices, I strive to pioneer sustainable solutions for energy storage, thereby fostering a more sustainable and efficient energy landscape. So, my work in chemistry is not only on advancing the frontiers of scientific knowledge, but also laying the groundwork for tangible applications that can positively impact various sectors, including renewable energy, healthcare, and technology. So, what we do in our group is make this flexible batteries and supercapacitors, so that we can use it for this healthcare devices, where you can continuously monitor your diabetes, where you can continuously monitor your blood sugar levels, all these things, oxygen levels. And we are also developing electrochemical sensors for measuring this for your glucose levels to be monitored continuously. So that's where we are exploring, and we are into the area of sorry. uh, so that's where we are exploring the we are actually advancing in the dimensions of scientific discoveries. So the actual turning point happened, so of course that was a turning point in the, so when I during my phd, it was a turning point for me to come from physics to chemistry. That is one thing. That was one point where I shifted myself from physics to chemistry. But the actual turning point, like I'm unstoppable now, is because the challenges that I faced after coming back to work, and with this motherhood thing. So those comments, those difficulties that you face has made me like I can't stop now, because otherwise I'm setting up a wrong example to the other women who actually want to pursue science. So there will be many challenges that they will face. There would be like this workplace problems, like things that will be continuously going on, especially when actually that is the major challenge that you face just when you start your family and you start your independent research career or any career. So because you are also in your growing years in your professional journey, and at the same time you are struggling at home to make a new family and all these things. So that is the turning point in my life. So I have accepted that as a challenge, and I'm like, I am unstoppable now. Do whatever you want. I will focus on what I want in my life and what I wanted to be in my life. So that is where I have changed a lot. Initially, it was like there were many instances where I just wanted to give up. Like, I can't continue. I will just give up my job. I will resign from the job. It's impossible. I can't manage both the things. There are many such instances in my like after I became a mother of my twin daughters. But then I became unstoppable now, because it it is like If I stop, then I'm setting up a wrong example for the other girls and other women who want to pursue their career in science. Because this I'm not alone in facing these challenges. And yeah, you anyone or most of the women in science would go through these challenges. Yeah. So I'm paying it forward in my commitment to fostering inclusivity and equality. I have actively advocated for the integration of diverse perspectives and voices within the scientific community. So, like recognizing the significance of representation and mentorship, I have constantly engaged in these initiatives aimed at promoting the participation of underrepresented groups, particularly women in the field of chemistry through my mentorship programs and I have workshops. So I have run several mentorship programs and workshops, including one at Ecole Polytechnique Federal de Lausanne in Switzerland. I have offered guidance and support to aspiring researchers, emphasizing the importance of work-life balance and the pursuit of interdisciplinary science as well. Moreover, my involvement in various outreach programs here at Center for Nano and Soft Matter Sciences and also before at University of Oxford, that it has allowed me to impact my knowledge and passion for chemistry to a wider audience, including the students from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds. So, by organizing camps, workshops, public lectures, I have endeavored to ignite curiosity and to inspire the next generation of scientists. Mainly irrespective of their gender, ethnicity, or background. So, by nurturing an inclusive learning environment and advocating for equitable opportunities, I aim to contribute to a more progressive and balanced scientific community, one that celebrates diversity and embraces the transformative potential of collaborative endeavors. Yeah. So, for sustainability, I would just want to emphasize once here again that we have been, me and my brother, as I said, from early age on, we were developing this solar cooker, then we developed this low concentrated photovoltaic module. It was just like we had at that, we had in our mind about the renewable energy. We have to make use of it properly, because the energy, as I said, we used to visit my father's oil field and all these things. So we know that these are not the options which are sustainable. So my tip for a sustainable lifestyle revolves around the principle of conscious consumption and mindful living. I believe that small everyday choices can collectively have a significant impact on how our environment and contribute to a sustainable future. So, one key aspect is to prioritize the use of and renewable resources and eco-friendly products. That's what I have been doing. That by we try to minimize our carbon footprint. I also advocate strongly, very strongly, for the reduction of use of single-use plastics, and instead we can use this reusable alternatives. So, additionally, I advocate for energy efficient practices such as opting for energy saving appliances and practicing energy efficient consumption that can significantly contribute to a sustainable lifestyle. So finally, I do promote awareness and educate people around my neighborhood as well about the importance of sustainable living within our communities, which is very crucial to inspire collective action and effectively positive change on a broader scale. Yes, definitely. This is what keeps me motivated. So every day when I wake up, I know that I have to prove myself, not to for myself, definitely. I have to prove myself so that peop, uh, people can't demotivate the other women in the society. So you have to lead by example. I mean, there you have to set an example. There is no way, and definitely for my kids, for my girls, uh, I can't be. I always feel motivated by looking at them. That no, I need to do that for them, because I don't want them to grow up or to face these kind of challenges once they are at this stage. So that keeps me motivated. Also my students, like, they always were very supportive, no matter from where I was working, remotely or not, at office. They always used to work very, I mean, they were following, like, yes, ma'am has said, told us, given us this problem, they need to work. That way I'm always motivated, like, if they are doing it, I need to do for them. Yes, definitely. There is one message that I want to give it to them, is to all the girls around, or who are listening to this, or who will be reading the book, is, uh, no matter, you should stop ignoring people's comment which are made for demotivating you. Of course there are many comments which actually helps you, which can motivate you, which can make you more uh, which are helpful in the sense of making you more progressive in your field, or maybe in personal or professional, doesn't matter. But once you have decided that I want to do this, then you should only focus on that part, irrespective of all the challenges that you face in your life, or all the comments, or all the discouragement, demotivation that is given to you by the society. Please don't start ignoring that as early as possible. Uh-huh. So, yes, in that sense, yes, definitely, I would really encourage, don't shy away. Don't shy away. It's okay. I mean, grab the challenges and the opportunities that you are getting, and just start working on it. It will be really helpful. So, I have really, in that sense, I have learned that lesson as a, like, no matter what challenge is given to you, if you think uh, that you that you become, I mean, you should accept that challenge as it is, and then start working on it. There is nothing called, like, it's impossible. Impossible itself is means I am possible. So that's what I have learned throughout my journey, scientifically, as I mean, in the professional career as well as personal career, and never stop learning. That's what I believe in. uh, Even if you become a mentor by yourself, or, it's good to keep learning. Yes. That's more challenging question. I hardly get time these days to to do any self care. But yes, I definitely make a point that 15 minutes I take it for myself in a day. In 24 hours, I have to have my 15 minutes. So it doesn't matter how I spend. Sometimes I do exercise, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just have my cup of coffee and a book, and I read it, and no signs, nothing, no one should disturb that part of my time. Like 15 minutes is what I take out from this busy schedule that I have. But I do make a point that in the morning 15 minutes are kept for myself, be it a coffee with a book, or be it exercising just for a walk, or driving as well, or listening to music. But no, for those 15 minutes, I'm not fixated that I'll do only this thing. It's just whatever my mind thinks that I can be at peace, whatever. So I do various kind of activities. Uh, yes, the one message that I want to give to my own younger self is, like, embrace every opportunity that is given to you, and believe in yourself. No matter how small opportunity that you think it is always a chance to learn and grow. And I would never, don't hesitate to take on new challenges, explore diverse fields, and step outside your comfort zone. That is one thing that I want to during my, like, my school days, I used to enjoy singing and dancing. But after, since I actually started my doctorate degree, somehow that part has just gone missing. It's completely off track now. There is no time, or no matter what I do, I can't be, I'm unable to do that. So yes, definitely, I would love to go back and do those kind of activities again, it's really refreshing for me, but unfortunately, it's completely off from my schedule now. The legacy that I want to leave behind is maybe believe in your own abilities. Believe in your own abilities. You are capable of achieving greatness. Uh, there might be the road which are like filled with uncertainties and setbacks, but failure is always a stepping stone towards the success. So I won't I mean, don't get discouraged by the challenges. Instead, view them as a chances to innovate and inspire. Mhm. So, one mantra that I always believe in is one: honesty is the best policy. But as in when I go low, I start reading Bhagavad Gita. Uh, I really get inspired by that, and then somehow I feel connected. So it has always helped me. I'm not sure whether it is like a spiritual thing or anything, but it's just I always feel connected. So I always go back to Bhagavad Gita whenever I'm feeling really very low, and I need motivation for myself.